Hey everybody, welcome to Kingdom of Honor. I'm your host, Sam Shane Sabuni, along with my good buddy, the Honorable Jeff.
Hello.
And Jeff, as much as I love the debut of Malakai Black, him standing over Cody after kicking him off the top rope through a table and then kicking him in the head when he called back in the ring barely at the head count. Man,
Right.
that was just beautiful booking at the end of that Dynamite this week.
I agree, and I was happy that Cody put Malakai Black over. The only thing that kind of bugged me about it is that he made it all about him by taking off his boots and feigning retirement at the end of that match. It was like, really, what do you have to what this match was so heartbreaking for you that you're going to retire? It's one of what 6 matches you've lost in the entirety that you've been in AEW. The only time you've ever lost a feud was to Brody Lee when you lost the belt by getting destroyed, but then you got that win back like 2 months later when you won the belt back.
Actually, he lost a feud to MJF.
Did he lose the feud to MJF? I didn't think he did, because I thought he won 2 of the 3 or both those matches.
No, he got beat at Revolution by MJF. That was the last match of the feud, right?
Oh, that was the battle where the battle bull ring or whatever.
The main event of Revolution in 2020, not this year, but last year, where basically like the last paper you had before COVID killed everything for a year and a half. But no, leading up to it, we were like, well, Cody's just dominating this entire thing. This sucks. And then MJF actually beat him at Revolution.
But he beat him by hitting him with his ring or whatever.
He still won.
Well, true, yeah. But is that the only feud then that Cody has lost?
I think so.
But even that feud that he lost by losing the match, he dominated every aspect of it going into the match, and then only lost the match because MJF cheated. So he still came out looking strong. I'm just saying that I'm not saying Cody is Triple H and burying people, but Cody does not lose anything ever. And when he does lose, he's put over as being strong.
Well, I guess that's fair. But at the same time, he also did lose to Jericho in a match where, if he lost, he could never challenge for the AEW World Title. So
because MJF threw in the towel.
Yep.
Yep. I don't think he has lost a match yet where he hasn't come out looking like the strong person, or except for this one to Malakai Black, but then he made it about himself by feigning retirement.
Did he though? Because to me, it was still all about Malakai Black, because Cody was clearly doing all that because he was like concussed and had no idea what the fuck he was doing. Like if you look at his eyes, it was like all the concussion stuff that was talking to me. So to me, that's still saying that stigma still ended up being really about Black, not about Cody.
Oh yeah, maybe. I just saw it different. I saw it a little bit differently with. It was great that he put Black over, and Black looked great, and that ending was great, and great booking on the entire feud. It was just that making it about himself with the whole boots coming off in the middle of the ring type of thing. That to me is where it left a sour taste. But other than that, I thought the fact that the way that they have booked Black since his debut, and then the way that match went, and Cody losing the way he did, I thought was great. It was just that little bit at the end with the boots coming off.
And really, I mean, even if Cody does end up winning this feud, which he probably will, they'll probably have rematch it all out, and Cody will probably win. But even so, you're still going to have that image is never going to feed of him, of Malakai standing over him, hitting him with his foot on his chest. I mean, that is just a dominant victory for Black.
Yeah, I agree. That really was. And it was nice to see, Black finally booked strong, which he hasn't been since he left NXT. So right. It was nice seeing that too, because like he's one of those guys we talked last week about, certain guys that we hated in the beginning, and then all of a sudden grew some respect for, like Orange Cassidy and Jordan Oliver, and Black is one of those guys too. Like we hated him when we first saw him. It wasn't until that match against Ciampa where it was like, holy cat, this guy can actually wrestle.
Yeah.
And then, after that, we started realizing, and he was a much better wrestler after that moment.
Yeah, and then somehow he and Ricochet became a tag team. The guy went from being somebody who didn't like anybody basically to being in a tag team with Ricochet in the Dusty Cup, and then moving to the main roster as part of a tag team with Ricochet. That was just so bizarre the way they decided to do that.
Yeah, one thing I was watching and thinking about after the release of Bray Wyatt, which is I wonder where he's going to end up going. But after the release of Bray Wyatt, I was thinking about it because you mentioned something about how the Bray Wyatt thing, and didn't work. Well, it did when he was allowed to be Bray Wyatt and have his minions. But there's something about Vince McMahon where no faction is ever allowed to live. No tag team, no faction. They always have to break up, and break up way before their time.
Except for so far, one. Right?
Except for who?
There's only one, but there's still one team that has never broken up.
The Usos?
And they nope. Well, Usos are true too, but I'm talking about one state, one faction that that is still going strong. They're still selling a lot of merchandise. They've been together for like 6 years, and they've not even come close to breaking up.
Who's that?
New Day.
No, they broke up.
Big
E's on SmackDown. Kofi and Xavier Woods are on Raw. They broke them up like a year ago.
But Kofi and Xavier are still together as part of the New Day, right?
I think they're still friends, but I don't think that they're still a tag team because Kofi was going up against Bobby Lashley for the title.
Okay, I guess that's fair, but to me, I mean, they're still but when they show up in the same event, they're still together as the New Day. I mean, so
yeah,
even if they're not always booked together, it's still not a situation where they're antagonistic towards each other.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're not, but they did break them up. I mean, they broke up the original faction of New Day by moving Big E. Yeah, I mean, that might have been the longest group that they ever had. That stayed a group. I mean, even the Usos at times they've tried to pit them against each other. It just doesn't work. So they end up putting them back as a tag team.
It's kind of amazing when you think back to how hot the Wyatt family was at one point, and now only one member of the Wyatt family is even still with that company.
None of them are.
Incorrect.
Who?
Randy Orton.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot he was a part of that family for a few minutes.
But otherwise, Bray Wyatt is gone. Redbeard, Eric Rowan is gone.
Brody.
Of course, Brody Lee has since passed away, and Daniel Bryan is gone. So I mean, really, the only one.
And so is Braun Strowman.
And Braun Strowman, that's right, Braun Strowman. So the only one that, and I mean, there's rumors of bringing him back, but really at this point, the only member that was ever part of the Wyatt family that's still there is Randy Orton.
Yeah, that is true.
And that fucker will never do it. So
no, he won't. But I totally forgot Randy Orton was even a part of that because it was such a mismatch. Even when Daniel Bryan joined them for that half minute, he was wearing the overalls and everything, and Randy Orton was just Randy Orton. Oh, but hanging out with Bray Wyatt.
How could you forget? What led to probably the worst title match, the WWE title match in the history of wrestling?
Yeah, true. That is true. Oh yeah, and that whole storyline was terrible. Oh, I won the battle royal, but I'm not going to challenge you for the title, and I'm going to give it. Who was it that got? Oh, AJ. AJ's the one that got screwed out of it because AJ had won a number one contender match, and then Randy Orton comes back and says, "Oh, oops, I decided I'm going to challenge you." So AJ got screwed out of the title shot there too.
Yeah, and then they like for 2 weeks they're like, there's gonna be a big match with AJ and Randy Orton, for the number one contender spot. They get 8 minutes at the end of SmackDown. Fuck you,
Yeah.
WWE. Fuck you.
Yeah. And even then, AJ had it won until Randy Orton cheated at the end.
Yeah, stupid. But yeah, what I was saying about Bray wasn't. It wasn't necessarily that I thought that, that the Wyatt family didn't work. It was just that I think that with all the iterations that he's gone through as Bray Wyatt, I would just like to see him just do something completely different in that stratosphere. And it's so stupid that what they did with him, because a year and a half, well, not even a year and a half ago, close, but last year WrestleMania, a lot of people liked the Taker versus AJ Styles Boneyard match, but you and I came out of WrestleMania going,
Hated it.
man, that Firefly Funhouse was the fucking best thing we've ever seen. And
Yep.
now he's gone, because they just didn't capitalize on it.
Well, there's kind of a internet rumor, and keep in mind it's internet rumor, so who knows, but the kind of rumor going around is the fact that he was fired because he wasn't wrestling, because after Luke Harper died, he's only wrestled one match.
Okay.
But I find that hard to believe, because didn't Brody die in like November or something?
Yes.
October or November of last year.
Right.
So basically you're telling me that Bray Wyatt hasn't had a single match since Brody passed away in October? I find that hard to believe, because this whole Alexa Bliss stuff started this year. He had his feud with Randy Orton with the starting people on fire and all that crap. That was this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, so even if he didn't actually wrestle a match, he was still involved in some really hot angles. I mean, I have no idea. I haven't watched the program, but I don't.
No, I haven't either.
But I he had to back out of the WrestleMania match with Orton, right? That didn't actually go down.
Right.
Yeah. So that part of it happened. But I mean, even if he wasn't actually wrestling in the ring, and he was still like a prominent character for them for a while.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe mentally he doesn't have the ability to wrestle with it still. That's possible. That you. I mean, maybe. Maybe it's like kind of like a Simone Biles situation. Where like mentally he's not in the shape to be out there when he's not going to hurt somebody or hurt himself in the ring. Maybe that's what it is.
And that's a possibility. All I know is that he has been horribly booked since day one. Like, they book him as a main eventer, and then they fall back, and he's a low mid carder, and then they book him as a main eventer again, and then it just is. His booking has been terrible since day one. The only time I can honestly say that they booked him well was in his feud against the Shield.
It's a lot like what they did with CM Punk during the Summer of Punk, isn't it? Where Punk, Punk did beat Cena at SummerSlam 2011, but then immediately after that, he gets beat by Alberto, gets powerbomb by Kevin Nash, gets beat by Alberto Del Rio for the Money in the Bank, and he loses the title. And then like 3 months later, they try to, they put the title back on him, and he has that for a 34-day reign that lasted until The Rock beat him. But all the momentum he had was crushed, and that's kind of what they did with Bray at SummerSlam at WrestleMania 30, 3 years later. Where he had this huge momentum going on. And then Cena beats him clean in the middle of the ring. And then even though this feud with Cena continued after that, Cena still won the feud, and Wyatt was never the same once that happened.
I do love the way that they ended up flipping the tables, and having Bray beat him in the Firefly Funhouse by having, going back to his promo and making it all about John being the one he was talking about, not Bray. That was a good moment. The only problem is they didn't do anything with him after that.
Right. Yeah, that's how I feel too. Is like, yeah, they did use it 4 years later 6 years later, whatever it was, to make that match really special. But at the same time, what could they have done with him in the last 6 years before that to establish him as a real superstar?
What could they have done with him after that? They didn't do anything with him after that. They just, he had this moment where it was like they flipped the tables and finally got him over John Cena and all this stuff. Now no longer buried, whatever. And then after that, nothing. He
I know.
just, and that's a big problem with WWE in general is unless you're one of the top 4 or 5 guys, you're not booked well at all. It's
And even
stop
if you
start.
and really, even if you are, they're going to cut your legs off at some point because they still don't want anybody to be. They're basically like the NFL of pro wrestling. They don't want anybody to be bigger than the
Right. And John Cena is probably the last guy that would ever get over like that. That would ever be bigger than that will ever be bigger than the WWE.
Yeah. Well, I guess I want to get off this trade. I really don't want to. I really don't want to spend the next hour criticizing WWE when we just
Right.
don't care about it.
Exactly.
Obviously, you guys still do have passion for it because we grew up on it. I mean, you grew up more on NWA and WCW, but AEW, but WWE was a big part of our wrestling fandom for years and years. So
Right.
it's hard not to go back and say, you're the ex-wife that just has turned my life bitter, right? At the same time,
Oh yeah,
there's
absolutely.
there's so many other exciting things going on in the world of pro wrestling that I don't like to focus on. There are times where I wish like for instance, like Money in the Bank, for instance. I think you and I talked, just very briefly a couple of days after it happened about the results and things like that. But you and I had done a show that he was on, and neither one of us mentioned the show was on. I had no idea it was Money in the Bank that night until I saw something on Google about it. And I said to my wife, honestly, I was like, oh, Money in the Bank's tonight. She's like, oh, do you want to watch it? I said, well, let me look what the card looks like. And I was like, wow, it looks like a really cool card for the show, actually. And she's like, oh, well, we can get some pizzas and watch it tonight if you want. I said, no, it looks like a good card, but they'll let me down. So, because that's the sad thing about it is I can look at WWE and look at it and be like, yeah, that looks like a really cool card, but I know I'm going to end up supporting it somehow. And it turns out, I
Yeah.
mean, I did see mixed reviews about the show, so I mean, I know that there's probably something on there, and I bet you, like, even if I had really enjoyed the show, the end of it I would have been like rolling my eyes and kind of wanting to go puke because Cena returned to challenge.
Well, it's just funny how and we talked about that. I don't know if we talked about it in the air or not, but like Andre El Idolo comes into AEW and wants a title shot, and Kenny is like, no, you got to prove yourself here. You gotta win some matches and prove yourself. Christian's on a current undefeated streak, and he's probably one of the few people that came in and didn't demand a title shot. But then when you flip the coin to the other side, we had Edge return after 3 months of injury and immediately get given a title shot. Bill Goldberg just shows up out of nowhere again and gets another title shot. And John Cena returns after 3 years of being gone, immediately gets a title shot.
Right.
It's just funny the difference between the two.
Speaking of Andrade and Kenny, it's interesting that they're. I mean, you're totally right that they're just not going to do that in AEW, right? It's the same thing with Christian. Like, he had to work his way up too. But Andrade actually is facing Kenny Omega in a week's time from right now when we're talking for the AAA Mega Championship. And when AEW first started, AAA, and actually even as they've gone on, they've mentioned it a few times where AAA is one of their international partners. So it'll be interesting to see coming up on Dynamite if they do some promotion for that show. That's going to be free. And guys, it's free. I mean, if you want to watch a great fucking wrestling mega show for free, you don't have to buy it on pay-per-view, you don't have to get Honor Club, you don't have to get Impact Plus, don't have to get it on Fight TV. It's free on YouTube and Facebook. And we're talking about a mega wrestling card that's going to include a hair versus mask match. It's going to have Deonna Purrazzo from Impact in a title match for the AAA Women's Championship. It's going to have Kenny Omega defending the AAA, I should say. That's really the way it's pronounced. But Mega Championship against Andrade in a fucking awesome main event. The Lucha Brothers are on there taking on Laredo Kid and his partner, and also Black Taurus and a mystery partner. in a triple threat for the triple A tag team championships. And there's also like a scramble going on, which is with one of those lucha libre style rules where you got people flying over the ring, and I mean it's going to be an awesome card next Saturday. I am very much looking forward to it. So I
Yeah,
just want to, I just kind of want to get the word out there to our 7 or 8 viewers. You got a free mega wrestling show coming up next Saturday that we're going to be covering for you. So,
yeah, and if you've never really experienced lucha libre, it's a whole lot different wrestling than American wrestling or
right.
even Japanese wrestling. I mean, it's all about the show. You're going to see things that happen that just make no sense, but that's not what lucha libre is. Lucha libre is about the show
And
and entertaining the fans.
and if you like the Nitro girls or the Impact girls, you're gonna enjoy watching the show too, because you got like girls going out there like dancing between matches and shit like that too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. Yeah, the rest of Dynamite though I thought was well done. I enjoyed. It was another show that I enjoyed. The opening match was a little clunky to start, a little rough to start. But after they got into their groove, it turned out okay. And then I don't know who that new tag team is, that 2.0, but one of them looked like kind of a fat Matt Jackson.
It's Everrise, dude.
Is that who it is?
Yeah, it's Everrise from NXT. So
Okay.
that to me is bizarre. It's like, I mean, they've already got such a roster of tag teams. Why the fuck would they? I mean, I don't. And we talked about this when AEW was first starting with. We don't want them to sign every WWE cast off they can, and they signed fucking Everrise. I don't. I mean, maybe they can make something special out of these guys, but I never thought they had anything going on in NXT. I never looked at those guys and was like, oh, those guys are going to be great someday. So maybe this is just showing up on Dynamite one time. They're going to be stuck on Dark for a while to developing them. But I think it's a very weird signing, honestly.
I have no clue who they are. I had never. I've heard the name, but I don't think I've ever seen them wrestle a match.
No,
Ever once.
and I don't think I've ever seen Danny Garcia wrestle. I've seen Everrise wrestle. I don't think I've ever seen Daniel Garcia wrestle before. And actually, I was kind of like cooking. Well, not cooking, but I was getting my food during this match, so I didn't really see much of it. But the little bit I did see, just kind of like looked like it was mostly a squash, right?
Yeah, it pretty much was, which
Yeah.
is odd. Why even bother? It was just a way to get Moxley and Darby Allin on TV, I guess. Maybe it's the only thing I can think.
Right.
Because there was really no reason for that match or the storyline that preceded it.
No, and Moxley Kingston and Allen teaming together is kind of a weird thing there. I mean, and Moxley Kingston obviously are best friends, or they're a tag team, but adding Darby into that mix was kind of odd. I suppose it's just a placeholder until whatever happens at Rampage second show, or the first dance. Did you see? By the way, did you see what Darby said about what he said on Dynamite last week?
No, I didn't.
He said when he was talking about the rest of the world, he wasn't talking about CM Punk. He was talking about Sammy Guevara. First of all, him and Sammy have already had a match. Secondly, Sammy's involved in a feud with the Pinnacle. Third, Sammy doesn't call himself the best in the world; he calls himself the best ever. So
Right. Yeah.
it was a nice little distraction type thing, but I didn't buy it for a single second.
Yeah, he's backing off just in case something goes sideways. But yeah, that is funny, yeah, because Sammy's never referred to himself as the best in the world.
Right. Speaking of things that don't make any sense, I'm just a couple. I want to jump back to these two, but I want to jump ahead a little bit while I'm thinking of it. It was so weird for there to be like an NWA Women's World Title Eliminator match on Dynamite between the Bunny and Layla Hirsch. The reason I say that is NWA has their Power pay-per-view coming up in a few weeks here. I think it's like August 30th or August 29th or something. And if you're having a match with an all-female pay-per-view, why are you tapping a couple of talents and really kind of lower level women talents the way they've been booked on AEW to fill out your women's title match for that show. That seems really, really, really odd.
Well, maybe they just
Does,
need to have some extra bodies or something.
well, sure, but then why wouldn't you like say, can we borrow Hikaru Shida for that match? You know,
Right.
or have Hikaru Shida take on Thunder Rosa for that women's world title eliminator. So I mean, why would they do like Layla Hirsch and the Bunny? That's the part of it I didn't get at all. And if you're going to do that match, why are you booking Layla Hirsch in that role when the Bunny is such a high profile women's wrestler for the last 5 years? You know.
Except ever since she signed with AEW.
I know, but you know what I mean. It's like
Right.
why wouldn't you have it as Allie versus Camille for the women's world title in your main event instead of Layla Hirsch?
And it is also kind of funny that like when you look at Allie, she came in really hot. I mean, she had that feud with Brandy and everything to start her AEW career, and then just turned into a valet. Just no explanation. Just all of a sudden, she was a valet.
Right. And I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but at that Empower pay-per-view, they're also doing like a women's cup type of thing. You know, like they have their what the hell was that cup? I can't remember the name of the tag team company anymore, but you probably know what I'm talking about. Where they had that where they the tag team tournament before, and it was won by Brody King and what's his face?
I don't remember.
Okay, well anyway, they're doing like women's cup thing that's going to be defended once a year at the anniversary show going forward.
Oh, okay.
So they're doing like a women's tournament on that show, and then whoever wins. So they got the Empower pay-per-view on a Saturday night. The next night they have
Right.
the AWA 73rd anniversary show, and whoever wins that tournament faces whoever they see the Women's World Champion the next night on this anniversary show.
Okay.
So whoever wins between Camille and Layla Hirsch will therefore defend the Women's World title the next night against whoever wins that cup.
I'm trying. I can't recall Camille. Camille's the champion.
Right. She must
Yeah,
be Thunder Rosa on one of the hours. We talked about this last week. I can't remember if it was on the air or not, but Power is now a pay show on Fight TV, which is fucking bizarre. Like, you can't even watch the old Powers anymore without getting a subscription to Fight TV for $5 a month to watch NWA. And I probably will do it. And actually, I probably will do it at some point, like maybe 6 months from now when they've got more pay-per-views on there, just to watch their pay-per-views that they've had in the past for like 1 month. But I'm not gonna I'm never gonna be like an ongoing $5 a month subscriber to that service.
I can't imagine anything that NWA has brought out that, like, even when they came back, it was kind of cool having the old school NWA 80s feel to it, but that wore out quick.
Yeah.
Really quick. Like 3 episodes, I was done with that.
Well, part of it is just the lack of talent they have.
Yeah, and then like we said, the little bit of talent that they did have is now gone. The only people left is Nick Aldis and a very, very old Ken Anderson.
And the thing with Nick Aldis is, as much as I like him, as much as you like him, he's not really a world title type of guy, in my opinion. I mean,
that should be holding it for 3 years.
Almost 4. Almost 4 years.
4, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not.
I mean, consecutively it's been 3, but I mean, for the last 4 years, other than that 2-month reign by Cody, he's been the champion.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see him as a world champion, but not for 4 years, not holding the belt for 4 years.
Yeah, not on the Bruno Sammartino.
No. Yeah, that's
so it's. I mean, and I'm not saying I won't buy the people, because I mean, I'm going to look at the card and see, is this worth $25? My guess is probably not. So I mean, I'm probably like 80-20 that I'm not going to buy it. But looking at it, like, for instance, like the main event, is Trevor Murdoch, who I've always liked. I've always been a Trevor Murdoch guy, but he's challenging Nick Aldis in a title versus career match. And
Okay.
and as many eggs as they put in Nick Aldis' basket, even though Trevor Murdoch's career is on the line, I have a hard time believing Murdoch's going to win that match. You know,
Right. Exactly. Which now you take away the only other name that NWA has, because he's going to be forced to retire.
Well, they've got the Pope D'Angelo. They got the Pope D'Angelo De Niro too. So, you know.
Oh yeah, but another guy who hasn't been relevant for almost a decade.
No, and that guy is a guy that you and I both thought could be like a major superstar.
Yep.
You know, when he was with TNA, and even watching, yeah. So here's the card so far. It's Nick Aldis versus Trevor Murdoch, title versus career. Camille or Layla Hirsch versus to be determined, and then Mickey James versus to be announced. And they're 3 weeks away. That's all they have on their cards. Anyway, but I mean, even watching, I told you I watched TNA Turning Point for 2010 this week, and they did something really interesting with a lumberjack match, like 5 years before WWE did, 6 years before WWE did, where the Pope was against Abyss, and that was a really good match. He was like really over with the crowd. He was a superstar, and I think it was probably shortly after that he actually got injured and wasn't able to wrestle for how many years, you know? So.
Well, probably from whenever he got injured, I think he just basically stepped back in the ring now with NWA.
Right.
So good, like I said, a decade roughly.
Right. And that's just too long, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and what did they do in that match that WWE ended up doing later?
No, they didn't. WWE didn't end up doing it later. It's just like lumberjack matches you follow the same pattern, and this one they did something interesting with the lumberjack match where the Pope had his congregation out there, including his brother. He had like 12 or 13 guys out there with him. So instead of having two sides are heel, two sides are babyface lumberjacks, these were all Pope's congregation that were with him. And they would, so they were kind of protecting him from Abyss, or they would get Abyss in the ring. And they were like cheering on the Pope. And then until he comes out, until Eric Bischoff comes out and he goes like this to them. And then they all turn on the Pope, they whip the shit out of him, throw him in the ring, and Abyss pins. That was really fun.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that because I haven't seen anything from that 2010-ish era, because I kind of walked away from it once Hogan and Bischoff became the main draws, and then the Nasty Boys showed up and things like that. I was just, no, I'm not doing this.
That event, I was listening to 83 Weeks about it, and the Dave Meltzer's torch, his readers all voted that it was 100% thumbs down. It was 0% thumbs up, 0% thumbs in the middle, 100% thumbs down. And I would put a thumb firmly in the middle of that shit. I mean, it should not be a thumbs up in my opinion. Bischoff was like, "This is one of the best shows we've ever covered." I was like, "What?" But I mean, you got Jeff Hardy versus Matt Morgan in a really good main event. You've got that lumberjack match I mentioned. You have a great tag team match between Team 3D and the Motor City Machine Guns. For the tag titles, and you've got a really good women's title match between Mickey James and Tara. So 4 really good matches out of probably 7 or 8 on the show. How could you possibly give it a thumbs down? I don't understand. And then you've also got now Tommy Dreamer versus Rob Van Dam in 2010 still should have been a really good match, right? But the problem was the crowd was completely ignoring it, and that really made it really hard, even for someone like me who doesn't really care about the crowd. When the crowd wasn't reacting to some of their big spots, it made it really hard for me to get into it. Even though a match I felt like I should have enjoyed,
Yeah, and you said 4 really good matches. That's more than the last 5 WWE shows I've watched combined.
Right. If the opening match hadn't taken me so far out of it, and there hadn't been a 10-man tag on there, I probably would have had it. I probably would have put it as a thumbs up. But you know how much I hate 10-man regular tags,
Right.
and and uh and 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 I thought like Jay Lethal versus Robbie E to start the show was just awful. So
The only time I think I have really liked a multi-man tag recently was that Dark Order and Page versus the Elite.
right, and 10-man tags that are elimination style, I feel a lot different than the 10-man tags that are just 5 versus 5
Traditional.
with one pinfall. There's only been a couple of those I've really enjoyed over the years. One of them was, of course, the main event of that WWE in your house in Canada Stampede, right? Canadian Stampede, and then there was that really big main event of Raw, like I don't know, 15 years ago. That was a really good tag. But other than that, just a regular 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 is really hard for me to get involved.
Well, I mean, we did just see one this week that was, really, really entertaining.
We did.
That PWG one. I don't know if that was good or not, but that was one of the most entertaining 10 minutes of wrestling I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was pretty fantastic.
And guys, what we're talking about is PWG, and I'm guessing this had to have been what, 5 years ago. When you
At
look
least,
at
brother.
because when you look at the guys in there, I mean, and this was star-studded. Like Pete Dunne was in it, Matt Riddle, Jeff Cobb, Chuck Taylor, Jushin
Jushin
Liger,
Thunder Liger.
Tommaso Ciampa. I think there was only one guy in the entire match that I didn't know, but it popped up on my YouTube thing, and it was an old PWG match, and I mean, it was just fantastic because at the time, Tommaso Ciampa had a move where he basically shoved his thumb in a guy's butthole, and Jushin decided to sacrifice himself so that Chuck Taylor didn't have it happen to him. And he bent over and taunted Ciampa until Ciampa finally did it, and then his iron buns clamped down and held Ciampa
Yep.
into place. And
Right.
then all the rest of the 8 guys all came up and did the thumb, and then they started a conga line with people's thumbs in there. That alone was entertaining, but then when they did that slow-mo bit, and I know I asked you about this, it seems odd to me that everybody in the audience would have gotten into it. Would
Yeah,
have.
I have no idea how they did that.
So it's like, I mean, the announcers, the crowd, everybody was like in slow motion. So I don't know if it was, the crowd was told ahead of time, hey, this is what's going to happen. But even if they were told ahead of time, this is what's going to happen, that not everybody in the crowd would be into it. But everyone was. And whether it was, but they did this whole little slow-mo segment. Jushin Liger pulls out a remote, pauses Ciampa, and then puts him in slow motion, and he does all his show taste to all the bad guys, and it's all in slow motion, and the crowd is reacting in slow motion. The announcers are talking in slow motion.
I would say if there was a crowd for any organization that would be able to do that, it would either be PWG or Chikara. If I can see the PWG crowd being able to do something like that, but the coordination, but the coordination of it was just outstanding. If that really was the case, so maybe somehow they spliced it together. I really have no idea, but it was incredible.
It was, yeah, it really was. It really was incredible. And I would have liked to have seen it live to see if that's the way it really went down. But it is just amazing that the entire crowd was going along with it. If it was spontaneous and they just decided to go along with it. Because I could see them trying to do something like that in the match to entertain, but having the announcers start talking slowly and the crowd cheering slowly, like when they were Jushin, like in slow motion, it was just really a cool moment to see the entire crowd get behind it.
It was. I have no idea how they did it, but it was absolutely brilliant. So Maybe you can leave a link to it in when you post the show,
I'm
Jeff. You
trying.
can leave a link to it.
I'm trying to find it now. I can't even find it again, which is
Well,
sad. I should have saved it. But
it's in your text to me. So you just put up your text to me.
oh yeah, yeah, okay.
And
It was one of
I
those.
didn't and I just pulled it up and it doesn't say what it was. But yeah, it was a young champ. It was a not young, but it was a champ of between his time so it had to be sometime in the next, I would say, like the last 5 to 6 years that it took place.
Yeah, because
Because Pete Dunne was almost as recognizable as Nathan Fillion was in the Suicide Squad movie, and you know,
right.
um, uh, that kind of stuff. So,
And I mean,
um,
it wasn't even called the bitter end at that time. It was some, what they call it, a side suplex flatliner or something like that.
Pump Handle Flatline.
Yeah, I mean, it was just amazing. If I can find it, I'll link it. It's worth a watch. It really is. It was definitely the most 10-minute and entertaining 10-man tag I've ever seen.
I will be. I got you there, brother. I agree. I was watching. I was like, wow, this is just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, when the crowd got behind it, and if the crowd, and part of me wants to believe that the crowd did just get behind it and start doing it, because shortly after that they all did the um you can fly with Ciampa going to the top rope, and the whole crowd got into it. And
Yep, that's true. Yep, they did.
so I could definitely see where that crowd was just playing along and everybody just got into it. But it just still amazes me that it
I
happened.
was thinking how many people in the crowd actually knew the lyrics to that song. And I was like, what the hell are they singing at first?
Right. Well, and it was just great the way they did it. Like they did it on cue. Like Ciampa's going up and they start singing, and then Jeff Cobb comes in and breaks it up, so they stop. And then as soon as Ciampa starts going to the top again, they start singing again. The crowd made that match too, with just the way that they reacted to everything.
Yeah, I mean, actually think about that, about that part of it. Yeah, it had to be that long ago because look how young both Jeff Cobb and Pete Dunne looked at them. They
Yeah,
looked,
Jeff,
they was.
and
Go ahead.
even I mean Matt Riddle looked like he wasn't even, but he was already getting the bro chant. And Ciampa had barely had a beard.
Right.
Um, and the only person that still looks the same was Chucky T.
No, Jushin Liger looks the
Well, yeah, too, I guess.
same. You and I, well, probably me a little bit more than you, but you and I both, were really upset about Miro, um, especially the way he won the championship, but also just kind of being the TNT, kind of out of nowhere to the TNT champion. But I think he's really, I think we talked about this last week. I think he's really establishing that title in a big way, and I think he's just got this ability to make anybody look like a credible champion, credible challenger, and then just kind of stomp them down at the end.
Right.
I mean, I don't know of anybody else that could have made Shoddy Johnson look this good in defeat. Like Shoddy actually felt like
No,
he had a chance for part of it to become the new TNT champion.
he is an incredible wrestler. We've been saying that for a decade. I mean,
Right.
he's an incredible talent. I don't personally like his gimmick. I'm not a fan of the whole God's favorite wrestler gimmick. But he is talented. I'll definitely give him credit for that. He's very, very, very talented.
I like the way his personality shows through now. Like we started seeing that a little bit of that with the Rusev Day stuff, but then WWE kind of just squashed.
Right.
Because it was getting over, and that wasn't their idea. But I do like the idea that we see like this guy that can be like really brutal and then kind of have be happy go lucky afterwards. I
Yeah.
really do enjoy that with this character. I mean, if you don't want to like the gossip wrestler thing, that's fine. But I do like his character in the sense that yeah, he's mean, yeah, he's brutal, yeah, he'll beat the shit out of you. But he also kind of had. But then at the end of it, he's kind of like joking around with you too.
Yeah.
I,
True.
I really do like that. So I'm really enjoying our Miro now. I still hate the name Miro, but I really do enjoy this character now.
I think it's hilarious that you hate the name Miro, but that's his real name.
Well, what do you want me to say? I'm sure like Miro is a great name to have as a person, but I mean as like a dominant professional wrestler, it's a weird name. You know,
Right. Rusev made more sense.
it did.
But and then I mean, I don't know, I don't really have much more to say about Dynamite. I thought it was well done. I enjoyed the show greatly. Little weirded out by Paige pretty much quitting the Dark Order and then the Dark Order letting him get stomped down by the Elite.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I guess he didn't really quit the Dark Order because he was never an official member. But basically telling them that, you know, I'm doing this on my own. And then for Grayson and Uno to stop the rest of the Dark Order when he's getting his ass kicked was a little weird. But
Yeah, it was so well done too, because you could see that Grayson and Uno were torn about it too. Like they were holding him back. They were like, that's what he wants. You know, they
right,
weren't like adamant about it. They weren't like forceful about it. They were like, but that's what he wants. You know,
right,
and
right.
it was that really was interesting. And it'll be interesting to see next week those two against um,
Good
the
brothers.
brothers too. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that'd be
Yeah,
that'd
that should
be
be
interesting to see that.
Is it Uno and Grayson, or is it Silver and I can't remember his partner.
It's not Silver and Reynolds. It's Uno and Grayson.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be a decent match. And Uno and Grayson have not gotten anywhere near the run on AEW that they probably deserved. Although their debut did really come off as flat. Like the only people that even knew who they were those of us that knew who the Super Smash Bros were.
Right, because you know they came on and you know they were both like a big deal, and then they had the match against Best Friends at All Out that year, and then they were just kind of like they were never completely retooled after that. They needed to be retooled, so I'm glad they did that. But
Right.
but yeah, I mean they started off so weird. You know, it's one of the few things that Tony Khan has tried that has just not come off very well. You know.
Well, and this whole join Dark Order and this whole Dark Order gimmick, I never really got behind it when they were heels, but since they've been
Right.
faces, I've really gotten behind the gimmick. I think the gimmick works better as faces, and the personalities of the group. Like every single one of them, the personalities work better as faces too.
Yeah,
Which
they
is
do.
odd to say because I'd never really looked at Grayson and Uno as faces before, but they're really fitting that role too, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah,
So
a little bit.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
only other thing I guess the only thing I wanted to see on the show was that I thought you know I guess I read afterwards that Butcher is injured, so I'm no longer kind of annoyed that he wasn't in that same spot that Blade was, and I thought Blade did a really nice job against Christian. You know, I thought that was
yeah,
that was a really good match, and I think you know, it's just a nice way of Christian, you know, kind of being on the you know just another nice you know match to get Christian kind of towards the top of the card. I still think, but I do think that we're going to get something like Christian next week when he said he's going to stir up shit with the Elite. Where he said that you know I'm really, you know, as far as stirring up shit, and that is what he said, but they blanked it out.
right.
As far as stirring up shit, I'm wait what's that word that's better than good? Elite. So I kind of
Right.
think I kind of think he's going to come out there and challenge Hangman Page and be like, I got my number one contender shot. You deserve a number one contender shot too. So how about I put my title on the line, my title shot on the line against you, and if you beat me, you're the new number one
Uh, I don't know. I mean, that would be a cool moment for Christian to put over Page,
right.
especially going in undefeated. But I don't know that Page really needs that. But we got to get Page back into the title hunt because you know he lost his chance. So and just a beat down every other week is not going to be enough to get him back in the title hunt.
Right, and the way that you know the way that the Elite came out there this week, it kind of shows you that they're not that feud is not story is not over yet. You know,
Right.
so they have to do something to get that title match back on.
It is just and I mean I see where you know Page is coming from. He's got to do it on his own because the whole thing is his fault, you know, because they were his friends and all that stuff. I thought was well done. I don't know where to go with it. I don't really like I like Hangman better with the Dark Order than Hangman by himself.
I like Heyman
But it
in
but it
period.
does kind of
So,
it does kind of lend itself to what he originally started. Remember when he quit the Elite? He didn't want to be a part of a team anymore. He wanted to prove that he could do it on his own and all this stuff. So it does kind of fit his story that they've been telling now for almost 3 years.
it does, and then I think it also kind of lends Kazarian more credit too, right? If I mean,
Yep.
if Frankie is the elite hunter, and Page is, say that Page is about to win the championship from Kenny, the elite come out there to try to stop him, and instead of the Dark Order being interfering, it's the elite
Frankie.
hunter, you know. So that way he
You
gets
know, I was
that way he gets some redemption for Christopher Daniels having retiring and their team being broken up.
did we ever get a finale to the Christopher Daniels thing? He made that whispered in Frankie's ear, walked off, and we haven't seen him since.
No, you told me on Twitter he said something about like I guess it's time to hang it up or something. And that was it.
Right. Yeah, but you would just think a guy of his stature, and a tag team of that stature, that he would have gotten a proper send off. And I mean, the last time we're going to see these guys together and they immediately pan to a backstage segment of John Moxley flipping over tables was frustrating.
What was his gimmick under the mask in TNA in Japan? What was that called?
Uh, El Fuego or something like that.
No, it was not Fuego. Was it Chili Man or something?
I don't remember. I don't remember at all, but I know what you're talking about.
It was Korean. So what if Frankie and Curry Man challenge the Bucks for the tag titles,
That would be hilarious.
or Suicide and Curry Man because Frankie was Suicide too.
Yeah, wasn't Christopher Daniels suicide for a little bit too?
Was he? I thought Frankie was
I
always Suicide.
I thought he was. His original or his Wikipedia does not have him listed as a retired wrestler either. It has him listed as an active wrestler or signed to AEW.
Right.
So I mean, they don't even.
I think that we need an interesting way around the stipulation.
Yeah, that would be cool to have a suicide and they can do it now because they're working with TNA, so they've got with Impact, so they've got all the copyright stuff taken care of.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up. But yeah, originally Suicide was Frankie Kazarian, and Christopher Daniels took over the role shortly after that. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I could have sworn they both were. And then I can't remember who the last one was that played him, but probably didn't really matter.
Oh, the last one that played him was actually was the manic version of the character, and that was one of the Rascals. What the hell? What it? Wentz. Zach Wentz was the last one to play it.
Okay.
Did you watch that Iron Man match? The 2-hour Iron Man?
Yeah. It was like typically, and it's weird because we've talked about this. Like people cut a pace now in an Iron Man match that is just unbelievable. So it was really weird seeing the first half hour of this match go as slow as it did.
That's true, but also that you have to think about that you haven't seen literally an hour-long Iron Man match in a long time. They're usually only
Right.
half hour these days. Other than that four-way match, other than that four-way NXT title match where the title was vacated, really most of the ones we've seen in recent years have been half-hour ones, and this one's going to be an hour long. But I did actually see on Impact the other day that there actually was a not a Christopher Daniels, but a Josh Alexander. TJP 1 hour Iron Man match a few months ago.
Yeah, and there was didn't it go like the full 2 hours of the show? And I know that there was talk about how it was one of the best matches a lot of the people in the back had ever seen.
I don't know, but I'm gonna have to find some time this week or something to try to watch that match on Impact Plus because it is actually there as a one. Uh, they actually have it separated out as one match to watch rather than having to watch the entire Impact.
Yeah, because I thought it was the whole Impact show, if I
Well,
remember right.
maybe it is. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this match did start off like you said, like it was slow and like submission holds and things like that, but it also all kind of built towards the falls that did take place in the match too. You know. So, what did you think overall of that?
I thought it was well done considering the length of time. I mean, a 2 hour match is hard uh, to get people behind. I like the fact that they changed it up. The first hour was, a real wrestling match, and then the second hour was more of a GCW match.
A little bit, yeah.
So that was really cool to see that they were able to change it up, and keep it fresh and entertaining for an entire 2 hours. Um, I really got intrigued, and I hate to say this, jumping ahead, but by 44 or 440, when they came out, I started really getting intrigued by them. I don't know who that RSP guy is or whatever, but people are talking about him being one of the best heels in the business, and you could definitely see that in him in his promo. But regardless, as far as this match goes, there was a lot to like about it. There was some things to dislike about it, like the big breakfast name. I just don't get. But I really had a lot of respect for both Deppen and Jordan Oliver for doing it. And like the announce team was horrible, absolutely horrible. They swore more times in that match than I think I've sworn in the last week. Um, not
And
that I'm,
there were times that one of the guys was so hard to hear what he was saying. So.
yeah, and I mean, they weren't using fuck as an adjective. They were using it as just regular words, language. I mean, it got to be a little bit too much almost with their announcing, but whatever. I mean, you talk however you want. I just felt like it was the language got to be a little bit much towards the end. The other thing to note about it is that I mean, Jordan Oliver literally stole two moves from John Cena. He did the FU or the attitude adjustment, and he did the "you can't see me" thing.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that to you. It's like it's silly to think that John Cena has been. I mean, but when you look back, John Cena was the top of the wrestling industry for a decade. Of course he influenced, younger 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old wrestlers that are out there now. Of course, a
Right.
guy like him influenced them. And then it got me thinking, who else? Because like when Edge was coming up, or when Edge finally started to really become, he put his, Hulk Hogan was my influence, and you get other people that have said, Hogan, Flair, Savage were their influences. Every now and then you hear a guy like Roddy Piper, or someone like Jake Roberts. But when you look at this generation that's now getting into wrestling, their influences would have been post Attitude Era. So it's not like you could understand, yeah, the Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H being people's influences because that was still 90s. But now this new generation, you got to realize who they grew up on. And it makes sense that John Cena would be that big of an influence on a kid to want to make them want to become a wrestler. I was thinking, who else during that time would be considered um, those influences?
I suppose Orton would be there up there.
AJ,
AJ. Um,
Edge.
for guys that are watching internationally, Tanahashi and Okada would be up there, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Christian.
I don't think Okada's been around long enough to be in that category of influencing current wrestlers.
You don't
Because
think
he's
so?
still a young guy. He's still a
Yeah, but
young guy.
he has been on top for like 8 years now.
But I mean, I think to influence, to be the driving force for a kid, to become wrestler, that's not long enough.
If you were 10 years old, how to start becoming on top, or 12 years old, 2 years into that, and you're a wrestler at 18 or 20, 18 years old starting out, then you're going to be influenced by that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's been on top long enough. Or,
Well,
I mean,
John Cena was pretty much the only guy on top. You could look at maybe like CM Punk, maybe Daniel Bryan, maybe, um, but I mean, really, John Cena pretty much dominated the wrestling landscape.
right, but I definitely see Tanahashi as being one. I could honestly see Randy Orton. He's been around for about the same amount of time, 17 years.
Yeah, I mentioned Orton. Batista's probably
Oh,
Batista probably because he's of multiple things like and of course The Rock, because The Rock, even though he's not been around all that time, he still is coming on. So I would put him there too.
My door just creepily opened. There's nobody there. It just opened.
I actually have to take care of something. So
yeah, we were talking about cutting it short anyway, but I mean, as far as that, that Iron Man match goes, I thought it was well done. I don't know that it's on my list to ever really watch again.
No, I'm not gonna watch. I'm not gonna watch it again either. But I did. I'm glad I did watch it, and I did like how they in the second match they had callbacks to things that happened in the first match.
Right.
The second hour they had callbacks to things that happened in the first hour. But I also thought like a lot of it would have felt, even though it would have been tough to have this 2 hour match in front of an actual crowd. I thought there was parts of the match that I thought would have played a lot better if there actually was a crowd there to like react to, like, for instance, like Tony Deppen's cheating and the callbacks that they were doing and things like that. So it was nice, it was nice as if you were at home to see it, but I think the crowd reaction to that would have been better,
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, guys,
right,
like we said, next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, hard goes like Monday or Tuesday. So coming Saturday, take a look at that Triple A show on YouTube. It's free on YouTube, free on Facebook. Find a way to watch it, guys, because it's free and it's going to be an awesome show. Also that night, there's also that same night, there's NJPW Resurgence in California, where Tanahashi is challenging John Moxley for the NJPW United States Championship, and Jay White is defending his Never Openweight Championship against David Finlay. So
okay, cool.
Just let everybody know it's coming up.
All right, guys, if at any moment during this you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe button, ring notification bell, and also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor.
Until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.
Oops. Stop recording, not end meeting.